Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for recommending the podcast to others. And if this is your first time coming by, well, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Podcast is about divorce. It's about dating after divorce. It's even about what's a good wine to have on that first date. Many topics. You can also find, if you go to the website, blendingthefamily.com, you can click on subscribe and you can find podcast episodes. You can also find the coaching. I do coaching too. I am here for you. Remember that. Whew, it is cold, and I've posted a picture in the show notes to show you my official outfit for today. We're talking minus 8 degrees when I took my wife Ann to work. Poor Otis, our family dog. Hashtag Otis. Hashtag our dog Otis Colorado. Poor guy, can't go to the dog park. We got hit with snow yesterday, and now with these negative numbers, I'm not taking him to the dog park. Poor guy. The cool thing about the past couple days, though, is the team. And when I say team, my wife and I, we're coming up on 10 years being married. Matter of fact, last night we were talking about we're going to take a trip to California. We're going to do some touring of wine country for our anniversary. And in the 10 years we've been married, it hasn't always been a team, but we've grown. We've had our ups and downs, our ebbs and flows, and it's been wonderful. And we worked together on shoveling yesterday. We worked together shoveling again this morning. So it's nice. It's nice to have a team effort in your marriage. I do want to mention, before I keep rambling about some other things, today's episode, Jay Deitcher, say that 10 times fast. Jay Deitcher is our guest. He's a writer. He's an author. He is a stay-at-home dad, and we'll talk more about Jay. This, to me, is the official first episode of the new year. I know I did one with my good friend, my brother of another mother, Mr. Johnny Nomad. I'm going to talk about what he's up to. But this is the first official podcast episode. It's me. It's having a conversation with a guest, in this case, Jay. And one of the things I've done the past couple of years is give the guest what's called the last question. And last year's last question was, if you were in my shoes, what question would you ask that I didn't ask? This year's question is an article, and I'll post the article in the show notes. But one of the things in this article talked about trying to look at things in a positive perspective. And one of the questions the author, it was a psychiatrist, I think she was. Anyway, one question she asks herself every morning is, what am I looking forward to that day? So going forward, that's going to be the question, the last question of the day for the guest is, what are you looking forward to today? And Jay was the first one to hear that question. All right, so I was briefly talking about my boy Johnny Nomad. He has a new book out called Poetry, My Life, a collection of poems. And I will put the link on how you can get his new book. I'm excited for Johnny. When he's a good guy, so please support him. And like I said, I will put the link in the show notes how to get his new poetry book, My Life, a collection of poems written by Johnny Nomad. He didn't listen to me. I told him to use his real name, but that's okay. Love him. Speaking of books, my book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., I've had radio silence with the publishing company. So I have no book update on that. So stay tuned for that. This week I had a wonderful, wonderful conversation with a gentleman named Brian Groves, Groves, and you can find Brian on the Twitter. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's a coach. He's just a heck of a guy. So find him on LinkedIn. Find him on the Twitter. He and I had almost a 2-hour conversation, and a lot of it has to do with mindset. I've been trying to work on my own mindset, my goals for 2022. Not all of them have. Well, I mean, it's early in the year when we're recording this, but nothing's really come to fruition yet. But that's okay. That's okay. After speaking with Brian, I've got a new mindset about a few things. I don't know if you've seen it, I posted. I'll post it again in the show notes here, and I'm working on an article, and I need to post a new picture of my whiteboard. And the way I do my goals is very similar how I write. If it's a speech, if it's a new book, if it's a article, I mind map it out, and I will again show you in the show notes my mind map of my goals for 2022. So my motto for 2022 is, if not now, then when? And then my word for 2022 is execute. I also have a couple other words that don't settle. That's another key word I have circled. But execute is me saying, this is what I want to do. I need to do it. And for 2022, I hope that you're executing on your goals, and I'm sure you're probably doing better than I am when it comes to that. Also, going forward, we're going to add additional. I know I say it a lot, but this is part of the 2022 goal, is to add more podcast content. So we have I have themes going forward. So Mondays, we're going to stick with the Mental Health Mondays. Tuesday, we're going to stick with Parenting Tip Tuesdays. Wednesday, Brian gave me a suggestion, and I'm going to change it. Sorry, Brian, if you're listening. It's going to be Wisdom Wednesday, and then we're going to go Thoughtful Thursday, and then Friday is the normal me having a conversation with a guest on the podcast. So stay tuned. I like saying stay tuned. It reminds me back in my radio days. Stay tuned for upcoming new podcast episodes. A lot shorter than the Friday ones. A little bit more down and dirty, I guess. So, all right, let me take a look at my notes. Oh, I did post a picture of the -8. So hopefully you saw that on Twitter at Blending Family. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, the Tommy Maloney on LinkedIn, and Twitter. I think that's it. LinkedIn and Twitter. Oh, and the website, blendingthefamily.com. All right, there we go. Just looking at my notes. Yeah, I think we've covered everything. All right, my guest for today, Jay Deitcher. You can find him at oh my gosh, I am struggling. jdeitcher.com. Deitcher. Jay Deitcher. So some of the topics we talk about with Jay. What are you looking forward to tomorrow? The last question. Do men, in your view, still have roadblocks when it comes to opening up? And he also opens up about couples time and date night. And I want to just mention, if you're a couple, even if you're not married, but it is imperative that you and your significant other spend that quality time of getting out of the house, or maybe taking an adventure somewhere, a day trip. Have that quality time, that bonding time. My wife and I are a little bit more conscious about it. Like I said, last night we were talking about our 10-year anniversary going to California. We're already setting dates. We're looking at what hotels we want to stay at, where we want to stay. So it's important. And Jay opens up again about talking about how he also needs to spend more time with his wife. He has 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and you'll get to hear his story, his world of being a stay-at-home dad in upstate New York, which I'm really excited because a lot of my wife's family live in that area where Jay is. And so hopefully next time we take a trip out east, I can go meet Jay, and maybe you and I can have some coffee somewhere. That would be cool. All right. I think I've covered everything. If this is your first time listening, I always like to end the show with a quote that I heard many years ago. An interview with one of my favorite people, Tim Ferriss. He was interviewing, who was he interviewing? Oh my gosh, Terry Crews. Wow, I've had coffee. I'm good. Anyway, so Tim Ferriss interviewed Terry Crews, and this is how we end the show because Terry Crews made a really interesting point, and that point is, your success is my success. Well, Jay, first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast. I loved your article that I saw on Huffington Post talking about the world that many of us have lived in, the world of being a stay-at-home dad, and even in the way of 2022, it seems that stay-at-home dads still are a little bit unique. That I should say, you're in that role. I graduated. I've got the T-shirt and all that stuff. But it just seems that after reading your article, that it still hasn't come to a normalcy that guys can be stay-at-home dads.
Yeah. So I wrote that article and everything in it is true, but like I feel like it's definitely gotten better, and I feel like some people are. I was sort of welcomed, but I also dealt with those things. So it was like there are plenty of people who accept stay-at-home dads, and plenty of people who were in those playgroups I wrote about that were welcoming to me, and a lot of it was in my own head, but there was also those events that were like that told me I was on the outside. Those things are all true at the same time.
Give us an example of one of those events.
So like just getting called Mr. Mom, like that's gonna happen. That's like,
Right.
and like someone called me Mrs. Doubtfire the other day, and they were well meaning, but like that's so ridiculous. And they were a very nice person. They're very supportive of me. But like it does it outside. It puts you in an outsider role. It makes you feel weird. Um, and it also it puts moms in that position. It just keeps up that reinforces the idea that moms are supposed to be doing everything. And I listened to your TED talk, and the idea of dads being this inept idiot, and I can't stand that idea. I feel like it puts us at it lets a lot of men off the hook. Um, so those ideas are it's not everyone though, and I feel like a lot of group leaders have tried really well tried their best to incorporate men into the group, but there's these societal things that still they're going to take forever to get rid of, and it's not even the group leaders fault.
Do you feel it's just maybe just I don't know, coming from the corporate world, do you think it's a lack of training on their part?
Okay, so what happened was I published that article, and the people who ran that first group I went to, the Jewish group, are friends of mine. And I actually think I hurt them with that article. Like they were shocked I wrote that, even though I interviewed them for it and told them what it was about. And they were like they told me they were doing their best, and I actually believe that they were. I don't even think it was their lack of training that caused the problem was they did call it mommy and me, which is a huge problem. That is a huge structural problem that a lot of these places are still referred to in gendered ways. So that was on them. But I do think that they were very welcoming to me. But there are people in the group that are just not going to be, and that's not in their hands. Like they can try their best and they can notice these things, but I feel like one, playgroups are tough for any parent to try and fit into.
Yeah, I mean, I've even read articles how, some moms um, have been, a little bit been shunned because maybe they didn't have the right purse, they didn't have the right
Oh yeah,
what have you. So other moms have looked down on them. But again, going back to the gender, yeah, I remember, going to a gymboree class and th- I, there was actually one other dad there, but he was just like he looked like he didn't fit in there as well, and
mhm,
he was a little bit shy, and he just really wasn't into engaging, and it was rough. And I know in your article you also talked about trying to someone buddy up with other dads in there to have that common front, and it's hard because other dads don't know how to approach a situation and and try to fit into that situation because at the end of the day it's not really about we dads, it's about our kids and getting them into the group and getting them to have some fun and getting out of the house and getting out of a routine and just having some fun. And even when I was taking my son for swimming lessons, in those situations, there were times where the moms looked at me like I had a third eye, going, "Why are you here?"
yeah, yeah. That's that's all just reality, and that does still. I don't know why it still exists, but the guys are still on the outside. You, eh, eh, yeah, and you said I was welcoming to other men, but the truth was I wasn't for a long time. I tried to distance myself from other men in the group. Um,
Why is that?
I get it. I don't claim to be better than any other judgmental person, but like, yeah, I mean, that's just, it's tough parenting and, and I just, one, I didn't want to be affiliated with them at times because they were on the outside also. I wanted to be on the inside of the play groups. That's how this whole playgroup culture works, where it is kind of clicky. And if you see another dad on the side, you don't want to be. I didn't want to be talking to them, and I was judging them because society trained me to judge other men. Um, I saw them as inept sometimes too, and it all goes back on me judging myself. And I think that you mentioned that playgroups are for the kids, but I also deeply believe that playgroups were like, if the parent is not sane, then they can't parent well. So like we have to keep our own sanity. So getting out of the house, going there for community is essential for a parent as much as for the kids. Playgroups are as much for the parents as the kids.
So you're talking more like the social aspect for the parents as well.
Absolutely. It's we need that. I mean, in the pandemic I don't have it and I don't totally miss the judgmentalness of a play group. But there were times in my parenting where I was crashing and I needed community, and playgroups did somewhat give me that. And it took a while for me to fit in or feel it a part of.
Would you would you call yourself an introvert then?
Yeah, yeah, very much loving the pandemic. Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you totally, Jay, because I'm a so introvert. I mean, even my wife would even classify me more of a hermit than than
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
And you know, being that introvert, but again, I understood that, and just like you do too. it is about the social skills for our kids to get out. And if we're too afraid to get out the house, what are we doing to our kids? What kind of life are we creating for them? So for me, I really had to force myself to go to a few of those groups, but I was really lucky for the fact that um, for the first year or two one of my son's existence, where we lived, there was a park right across the street, so I could socialize without socializing. I
Mhm.
could be in the park and be around people, but I didn't really have to talk to them.
Yeah.
And for me, that was nice. Or even during the wintertime, going to, the local mall, which was really funny because before I became a parent, where one of the malls is located, it's in a very uh, influential area and a lot of money. And I would talk about judgmental. I would be that one judging these mostly the moms. They'd be
Yeah.
in their have their stroller and they'd have their Starbucks coffee and they're like speed walking, throughout the mall, and I'm just laughing at them. And then I became one of those parents, and but it was also for me, growing up as an only child, growing up of having divorced parents. It was for me being able to just totally bond with my son, and
Yeah.
just wherever I went, he went, and it was just, even if I had to go to a play date, I really had to, honestly, as I'm sure you can attest to, Jays, I really had to suck it up. I really had to pretend I was an actor in a movie to be able to engage with other people, when at the end of the day, all I wanted to do was hide.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I hear that. So you're kind of, so you had your introvert nature, and then you do have the boundary of being a man who feels outside. So I think that playgroups leaders have to take this into account and just remember that and be really sensitive to that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that's where possibly, I go back to, maybe there just needs to be a little training on that, or even being a little bit more observant of, if you're the group leader, being observant of, knowing your audience. As a speaker, that's, speaking 101 right there, is know your audience. And I feel that, there were times, again, not to disparage Jimboree, but that's where, I didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And it was again, I really had to step into a role to really just put on a happy face for my son and just move on from there.
Yeah. So before, I've had numerous versions of the Huffington Post piece that published, and I interviewed one expert who talked about like having rotating group leaders, so the community that's coming to the playgroup sees themselves in that group leader. So I do think like playgroups could also take that into account and get dads involved with leadership roles in playgroups.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, as parents, we want to do what's best for our kids, but at the same time, if we can learn from other parents and see other ways to help our kids, and even helping our significant others as well. Yeah, that would be, something definitely for any type of, group kid interaction. That would be nice to be able to have, one group leader be able to take a step back and observe and see how the whole of the group can improve.
And so one thing, and I adore the people who led their first playgroup that I went to that I wrote about in the piece, but like I don't think they handled it well by getting offended by me publishing this piece, because I spoke my truth, and group leaders should just not defensively be able to take inventory of the group and what needs to be seen. And that's just what I pointed out, because these are realities of how men feel. So I think a group leader just can't get defensive.
Well, let's do this, Jay. For those who haven't read the article, which it will be in the show notes, can you delve into the article?
Explain what it's about.
Yeah.
So I went to my first play group, which was a Jewish play group right by my house, and I went there because it was Jewish and because I knew I would feel more comfortable there. So right there, it shows like the importance of like it was already a community I knew. Um, and when I walked in, I saw another guy sitting outside of the circle, and there was a core circle that sat together. And he did talk to me. He's that guy's a really great dude. But so I sat down on the outside too, and that's where I remained for months. The group leader is very nice to me, but I had a few people that said silly comments to me, and then eventually I did branch out to other play groups at the libraries around here, and I just found that a lot of the culture that I found. Oh, that first group was called Mommy and Me, so right there I had like a wall against me. Um, the library play groups were not gendered in name, but you saw a lot of the cultural things coming out in the members. There's still clickiness, but like everyone deals with clickiness. But I would be called Mr. Mom. I At one of the play groups, I had a mom talk to me about how she felt outside the group too, and she wanted to make play dates with people. And then once she started making play dates with the other moms, she stopped talking to me. So you see this whole thing where people are making play dates, but you're often at the outside because you're the guy. And by me in Albany, the main group that has activities for kids is called Capital District Moms, which
Mm.
is just so annoying to hear that talked about so often in Playgroup. That's actually the main place I have beef with. I cannot stand that group, and I'm hoping someone from that group read my article because I find that so problematic. That's the core parenting group in Albany. And then I did talk about how eventually I did make friends with a mom because I did want to be accepted by moms. I've always wanted to be accepted by moms because I have this sort of I feel like I have to prove myself sometimes. And there's a lot that goes into that. And so once I had a friend, I think I felt much more comfortable. So then I started being more talkative to other people and making more play dates. I made play dates with that friend. She came over to my house for dinner once with her family. And I started being more comfortable with the men in the group and with just everyone. And so that's pretty much what my piece is about, and how we just need to all support each other in play groups no matter the gender, no matter what. We have to recognize that people feel like outsiders and welcome everyone as best we can.
Go back to you talked about having to prove yourself. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so I actually wrote a piece in Esquire about this that also goes into play groups, and it stems from the first thing that my wife said to me when we had our son. She said it was one of the first things. She like made it very clear that I would never be able to have the bond that she had with our son because she was the mom. So I would never be able to bond with my kids the way a woman could. Um, and it's horrible, but like right then I was like, I want that bond, and I'm willing to do almost anything for that bond. And like, spoiler alert, I have that bond, mostly with our first child. He's like on me all like he's my shadow. I it's amazing, and I've really earned that, and it's such a blessing. You kind of brought that up about going to the mall with your child and how blessed you were. So yeah, I mean, but I did have in the past. I've been more. I have felt inferior as a guy, and like I had to prove something. It's so stupid. Like, why am I proving it to other people, and I'm proving it to myself? Now I'm less insecure because I have that bond.
I, I don't know about you, but I wanted to send you a big hug right now, Jay, because I can really, really relate. And my former wife, she would explain to me that when we talked about me wanting to stay home with our son, she would say to me, and not necessarily in a mean way, but maybe very similar tone wise as your wife, because I don't come from, like I stated, I'm an only child. I never babysat. Never in my life did I ever change a diaper. So now here I am coming into the world of parenting, and now I have to learn how to change diapers.
Mhm.
I have to somewhat cosmically understand when my son is crying. Is it because he's tired? Is it because he's in pain? Is he hungry? What is it? And so my former wife would say to me, well, if you need me, I can be home in so much time. And I'm like, very similar. I think I never really thought about until you were talking about proving yourself. I think, and I don't know if, and I'm sure we're not the only ones there, Jay, but I feel I had to do the same thing. I had to prove to her that just because I didn't have all this experience, I can still be a loving dad, that
Yeah.
I can, figure things out. I might not be, brilliant when it comes to a lot of parenting, but at the same time, I think I can do it. And, my son will turn 19 this year, and he he survived the 2 years he was with me, Jay. So I think I did okay.
Yeah. Now, did she have that training? Because most women don't have that training either.
Yeah, she had siblings, she babysat, so she had all that um, already. Um, but I don't know if it was just because I was a man or I didn't have the same experiences. And again, looking back on it, Jay, I don't necessarily want to say she was trying to be mean about it. I think she was trying to just be realistic to me.
Hmm.
But I come from the world of facilitation, and I've learned about on the job training, and and I'm sure you can relate, Jay. Being a stay at home parent, that is on the job training 24/7.
Whether you're a man or a woman.
Exactly.
Yep. Because you have to, yeah, to act like we're more inept is. I mean, it's societal that it's been ingrained in people's heads. It makes sense that people would say stuff, um, and it doesn't make them bad or anything. But most women are thrown on the job, and when a baby's like early years, we're all freaking out, man. It's a hard job, and we're having to figure things out on the fly all the time.
So, do you think you were able to prove to your wife?
Yeah. Okay. So first baby, I think I was everyone was learning something with the first baby. By the second baby, um, the first time anyone was left home alone with so we don't leave the house because of the pandemic, right?
Right.
So I eventually was like, get out of the house, Antoinette, go somewhere, and I'll stay home with the baby. And I don't remember how old she was, but I was the first person left alone with our second child. Um, and that is important because Antoinette would have never let me leave the house and left her alone with two kids. Whereas I was able to say, I can handle this, and she was able to trust me when she wouldn't have put herself in the same situation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and like I totally survived. And like nowadays, it's like all the time I'm the one with both kids, and it's like it's such a matter of pride because I got this, and she knows I got this. Um, it's beautiful.
It is. And I I remember, talking to moms, and I would ask them, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a stay-at-home dad. What advice could you give me? And the biggest piece of advice I always got from them was make sure you figure out a way to get a shower in somehow, some way every day.
I heard you say that in your TED
And I'm
Talk.
like, okay. And I'm
Yeah,
thinking, how hard is that? And then I'm thinking, that's hard because you don't want to be leaving your kids, just all alone.
yeah. I mean, I don't do that. Straight up, I'm disgusting, and it's pandemic, so it doesn't really matter. But because I write on the side, it's like every minute I have where a kid's napping or something, it's like, are you going to shower? Or are you going to get that project you're working on done? And I'm choosing the project, quite frankly, because time is valuable right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, and time is currency. You don't get that currency back.
Yeah.
So, Jay, let me ask you this: where do you see fatherhood currently? Where we are, um, even if we could remove the world of the pandemic, where do you see, from your point of view, fatherhood?
I mean, it's there's more stay-at-home fathers than ever, and it's rising every year. And we are being more welcomed into the spaces. So, and more dads are stepping up. Thank God, it's not a societal thing where it's like a man goes to work and has to make the money for the family. Um, more men are willing to step out of gender boxes, and it's a beautiful thing.
Do you have, I mean, within your circle, do you have other stay-at-home dads within your own friendship?
So I do. Um, Well, one of my best friends actually just became a stay-at-home dad last week. He left his job because
Oh,
his wife didn't.
congratulations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool. But he's always been supportive, and he's always been a really hands-on dad. You talk about the statistical differences in how much a woman can make on the job, which is reality overall. But a lot of times it's in a relationship, in an individual relationship, certain sometimes the woman, and I don't want to even talk in gendered ways about like about it only being man and woman in a relationship, but sometimes one partner just makes more money and it doesn't break down as the woman being the one who makes less. um so it makes total sense for that person to be the one working it, and the other one to stay home. And sometimes it's just that they're better uh um, temperamentally to be the one staying home. And in my case, it was both of those. My wife makes more money than I could ever make, and I can make some money on the side, and that keeps me sane also. And I also can deal with the droning, boring hours of sitting around reading and doing artwork with kids. It's boring, but it's lovely.
Well, it's you're creating events. You're creating, you know, probably more memories for you than the younger kids, but it is nice. It is wonderful. I mean, I can look back on the times, like I was saying earlier, about just going to the mall and just
Yeah.
walking around. And I can remember, certain times. My son might not remember, but that's okay. We've created other memories and events to really have. I mean, we would have to ask him, but I think we have a really good relationship
Yep.
because of the ability. Similar situation, Jay. My former wife, she made far more money than I could imagine,
Hmm.
and it worked out. It worked out great, and I really believe that if you can, and I guess in our case, you and I were willing to want to do the stay at home, you know, um, but if you're not willing, that obviously it's a different choice. But if you're definitely willing, you get to create so much bonds between your kids, and it's just I miss it. I'm happy we have a dog now. Really can't totally compare, but
Mhm.
um, like with my son, he and I went everywhere with our dog Otis. He
Yeah.
and I go everywhere, and maybe I should go back to my psychiatrist, and maybe it's substitution. I don't know, Jay. I don't play one on TV, but I just think it's great that they're, like you were saying, more and more dads, more and more men are becoming stay-at-home dads.
Yeah. Yeah. So wait, I had a couple things. One, your son might not remember those early days, but those early days are the ones that are most essential for kids creating bonds and
Right.
trust. Um, so that does these bonds pay off. Um, can't remember what else I had from all that you said. You said it so wonderfully. I mean, one thing for me is I like being a stay-at-home dad way better than I ever liked working. To be honest, I would have it no other way. There's no complaints about being a stay-at-home dad.
No. Let me ask you this, Jay. So we're talking about fatherhood, but at the same time, who do you reach out if you're having a rough day, if you're struggling? Can you go to other stay-at-home dads, or do you have a different circle of guys that you can just say, hey, the kids were driving me bonkers today, the wife was in a bad mood, or I was in a bad mood, or what have you? How do you handle being a stay-at-home dad? How do you handle your stress and be able to let it out?
I so I had go to therapy for one thing, um, because my wife. A lot of guys put all their emotional stuff on their significant others, which can be problematic. And my wife gets very sick. I'm very emotional also. Um, I I don't fit into gender boxes. I'm the emotional one in our relationship, and she can't take all that on. So I talk to a therapist. I have that one friend who I told you about. I also am a recovering alcoholic, so I have like a sponsor, and I go to self help meetings for that, which probably helps and gives me community.
So it's mental health wise, it sounds like you're doing all the right things.
I do. Now that I think of it, I have other parents. I have moms that are part of my support group that I talk to quite often about parenting thing. When it was warmer out, we were going to playgrounds a lot, and there was like a crew of us that were going there and kvetching and asking for parenting advice every day from each other.
So what are some of the things that you've picked up, parenting advice wise, that you've incorporated into your family?
It's normally just like when I'm on the playground, it's like, is this weird? Is this problematic that my kid's doing this? Um, I my son plays with trucks, which is weird for me, and because like I'm always trying to break out of genders, it's weird that he picks gendered stuff. So I remember being on the playground and then finding out that my friend's daughter's obsessed with trucks too. Stuff like that.
But you're okay with it though, right?
Yeah, I'm supportive of everything. I mean, to be honest, if he starts playing football, I'll be like weirded out. But I'll I'll support him in it. I'll support him in everything. I absolutely support him in his truck obsession. Um, he knows so many different kinds of trucks. It's so weird, man. I didn't know there was that many kinds of trucks. It's really cool.
So why does it weird you out that he's essentially picking toys for that boys would play with?
Um, you know, uh, again, my own bull crap. It's my own bull crap, and I have to work on that and not project it on him. Um, yeah, my own issues with I guess men. and man boxes and not wanting him to fall into the stereotypes I have for men. I talked to you about how I stereotype men all the time.
And if he does decide to play a sport, you'll be okay in supporting whatever sport.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, it'll be scary. It's not part of my culture or my family's culture. I remember I wanted to join sports growing up, and I don't want to get into stereotypes on your show. I don't know your audience that well, but I wanted to play a sport. I never would have survived as a wrestler, but I wanted to play wrestling, and my parents said, absolutely not. They said, you're going to hurt yourself before your bar mitzvah. And my bar mitzvah was like far into the future, but it was like, there is a it's just not in our culture to value sports. It's like scary for us. um and I'm ignorant also because like you could choose soccer, even though soccer's crazy, but soccer's like international and for some reason seems better to me. But I guess they be getting concussions all the time. So I don't know. It's I mean, I'll support the kid in anything he that brings him joy. I've learned that you have to with kids. My parents, when I was growing up, I was an artist growing up, and they told me like, don't do that. Um, you'll make no money at it. And so like they said like, do it as a hobby, but you'll never make money at it. And so I stopped doing it, and then I got another degree, and then I got a master's in social work, and I hated it. And then I ended up writing again. So like, just trust your kids, let them go with their passions, and I think they'll be fine.
I agree. I agree, Jay. I mean, kids can be really resilient, and I mean, who knows? Maybe your son will pick up the art gene from you and start creating NFTs and make you all millions of dollars.
Yeah. If he makes us millions, I'll be cool with that. I don't know about art. I don't know. I can't project anything on him. Yeah. I don't know what's best for him, but he's enjoying his life very much right now.
And how old are the kids?
1 and 3.
Both boys.
Nope, one's a girl.
Oh, you're
The
the one
one
year
year
is a
old's a
girl.
girl. Hmm.
So how did that change your life going from having a son to having a girl? I mean, again, not. I mean, again, we're don't have to talk about the gender, but I'm just saying, you know, because I went from being a single dad, got remarried, and when I got remarried, my wife has two daughters. So talk about you know a culture shock. That was really interesting for me, and even to this day. So how did you did you have to parent differently? Did you have to change your mindset? How is it different going from your son to your daughter?
It's not. It's just harder to. I remember when we first had her, it was like, oh crap, it really is harder to wipe her. That's about it. And my wife said that too, with the poop explosions at the beginning. It was like, whoa, we have to worry so much more about how we wipe her now. Um, Other than that, I mean, she's at 1.5 right now, about 1.5. So she's climbing on the table. She's getting into the dog food. It's all the same stuff my son did. Like, there's nothing gendered about obsessing with putting my dog's food in the water every 2 seconds or getting on the damn table. She has a very different personality. In other ways, she eats a lot. My son does not eat anything. He won't eat, but she eats everything. And I don't want to like shame her for that or like make that a something, but that's a different thing. But it's none of this is gendered.
What life lessons did you learn though going from boy to a girl?
Um, that I could handle 2 kids.
Ah,
I'm like you said in your TED speech that you never planned to be a dad.
correct.
So I was the same way, and it comes from me being a recovering drug addict. Um, because like I just couldn't see myself doing anything. I was known as a failure, and I have 16 years sober right now. But for most of my life, like it was like, why try? Because you're gonna fail. Because I kept relapsing, and so it. At first, life changes were really hard for me. Getting married was like very difficult to not project into the future and think I would fail at that. So I think when I got through that, getting married, and started realizing I could have a productive relationship, I could I could be a husband. I started getting faith in myself, and then I started like having faith that I could have kids. And then I had my son, and I realized I could really be a dad. And like now, it's like I can handle this. I got this. Like having another kid is it's definitely it felt like it was a lot when I had my first kid, and now it almost feels like I have less having two kids because I'm not stressed as much. I know how to handle things. Isn't so it wasn't that big of a deal having a second kid.
It sounds like, as I'm listening to you, Jay, that you're constantly trying to prove to yourself that you can do these things. I mean, I'm no psychiatrist, but that's what I'm hearing.
I mean, it's not just parenting; it's
Right.
life. I had to prove to myself I can handle life, and I've proven I can handle that. I don't think I'm trying to prove that right now. I'm like at a pretty damn good place. Um, yeah, babies, bring them on, man.
So are you and Antoinette planning on more?
That's I mean I said bring them on, but we don't talk. And another thing about my culture is you don't talk about that stuff sometimes because you're afraid to jinx stuff. Um, so I don't. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah,
we'll, we'll save that for another show. How's that?
yeah, yeah.
One of the things I really want to also talk to you about is writing. I
Hmm.
mean, I cannot compare, and I think I mentioned this when I was when you and I were communicating through LinkedIn. I mean, I can't compare myself to the things that you've done. I mean, especially writing for Esquire and Huffington Post, among other things. So
That's from a guy who wrote a book or wrote books.
there's still
It's
time. There's
quite a
always
feat,
time,
man.
Jay.
Yeah.
So, what is like your writing process? So, let's say you have an article coming up. What is? I mean, do you write better? Obviously with two kids, you have to abide by their schedule. But what do you um, feel is better for you when you're writing? Are you in the morning? Are you in the evening? I mean, again, obviously I'm sure you're fitting in writing when the kids are napping. So what is your writing process?
So I full disclosure, and I think I my kids watch a lot of TV also. Um, More than they ever would if it wasn't pandemic. My kids are not in daycare either, because we're more paranoid than other people about the pandemic. Um, so my writing process is I write whenever I can. I normally have the kids on TV for a while each day, and I'm writing then. Um, I write during naps. I write when they're asleep. My wife does not get enough couples time, which I am always constantly worrying about. Now, like having to go back and recognize and work on that. And I write better since I've had kids, because the pressure's on. I really look back on the time before I had kids as like wasted time because that's all I did was like bull crap during my hours. Where now it's like you value all the time. So it's made me way better writer, way more productive writer, and I also have the financial right now. The financial stuff is really intense. Like I have to bring in money right now, um, and so like I can't say yes to like short like clips that don't pay. Can't say so. It's right. It's pushing my career also.
Are you a pen to paper? Are you on a laptop?
It's all
A
laptop.
laptop?
I Yeah, yeah.
what um, do you use any kind, like for me, I use Grammarly for my writing. What type of software do you use or don't use?
So I use Microsoft Word. I've never I don't really trust Grammarly. I don't know much about it, but I don't trust other things to tell me what grammar to use. I should mention that after I was a social worker, I left social work because I crashed. I was working with abused children there, and I worked in it for 10 years. And then my wife pretty much said I had to get out because of my mental health, and I got an MFA. So I have a degree in like writing. So I'm always studying grammar.
Uh,
Like I'm obsessed with the sentence, and I always want to get better at it. I'm still not the best at grammar, but like I always want to improve my writing. And yeah,
oh, I'm with you there. I feel, as you are well aware, I mean, if you're not writing every day, it's like working out. You keep building that writing muscle day in, day out. I mean, I remember the stories of Jerry Seinfeld talking about how he would have these calendars, and every day that he would write, he got the opportunity to put an X through that date, and so he could visually see every single day that he's written. Now, is it always going to be the world's greatest joke? Even he would say no, but he can build upon what he's writing and building his stand-ups all at the same time.
yeah. So okay, so you brought up a couple things there, but like every writer has different ways of doing it. You brought up like the whole idea of writing every day. I do not do that at all.
Really?
Um, oh no, definitely not. The amount of writing I actually do is like, I mean, I only put out pieces a couple times a month because it's as much as I could, or sometimes once a month, or sometimes less than that because it's as much as I could take on. Um, but like because of the type of pieces I'm trying to get into, research pays, journalism pays more. So a lot of the legwork is getting sources, interviewing people. So I'll go days with weeks without writing. Right now, I have a piece due in a month from now. This week is just like dedicated to setting up interviews. Next week is doing the interviews, and then I'm going to have to spend 2 weeks cutting up the piece, shifting it all around, editing it day, every day, so I can hand it in 2 weeks later, and it's a 1,200 word piece.
1,000 words, that's not bad.
No, but I have to put 5 sources in there. Sometimes the most condensed pieces are nightmares. This is for a really high publication, so there's a lot of pressure I feel on me for this one. But I take that into account with the time I say I'm willing to do it in. I'm not willing to take quick turnaround pieces because I can't handle the stress. Along with parenting, I'll drive everyone in the household nuts. Um, yeah. So I definitely don't write every day. I read, I try and read almost every day a
Hmm.
little bit, just so I'm like constantly churning out ideas of what to write about, looking at people's sentences, just growing as a writer. So that I would say is much more important to me than writing every day. When I write, I want it to shoot like it's like from a gun. I want it to hit.
Wow. You know, and that's the thing. I love talking to people such as yourself, Jay, who get to get paid to do a craft that they enjoy, and I love learning uh, from writers that I've had on this podcast. And it's like you said, every writer does their craft differently. It's like parenting. Parents
Yep.
parent differently. I mean, I see, my wife and I, there are times where we parent our kids differently. I get it. Um, but it's still, in my mind, the opportunity to learn from other people. And, that's why I was curious about your writing process and, you know, again, having kids, trying to get content done, I'm sure there's been a few hurdles here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have taken on assignments that I needed quick turnover, and they've always been a bad idea. Those are always the hurdles that are like they cause a lot of stress in the family.
So, how do you feel in comparison between being a dad, a parent, versus being a writer when it comes to proving yourself?
So, um, right now, I said it earlier, I'm at a really great place, but I also think that okay, so there are financial reasons why I need to write right now and try and make money off of it. But like there's also that sickness that I think a lot of stay-at-home parents have where they have to feel like they have to produce something to have like an existence or like an identity outside of parenting. So that's true also. There have been times early on when I was a stay-at-home parent where I haven't felt like I could purchase an item of clothing for myself because I didn't make money for the household, or I didn't make enough at that time. I was social working part time, um, and and it just so happens that I'm putting out right now, so I don't have that issue. But like that's a sickness too that I think a lot of stay at home parents have. I don't know if that had anything to do with your question.
So, do you still think uh, you're you're beyond having to prove yourself as a dad now?
Yeah, I don't have to prove myself as a dad. I've also and about the writing piece. I one early in the pandemic when I wasn't writing as much, a guy stopped me on the street and was like chatting with me about work, and he said, "You work from home?" And I said, "Yes." And I felt like I was lying to him because I was a stay-at-home parent and because I didn't bring in the income then. And like I don't even think I feel like I wouldn't be in that situation nowadays where I'd feel like I was lying to someone. And it's sad because now it does have to do with me making more money because of my freelancing going better. When stay at home parenting is a job, does that make sense or answer
Yeah.
anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you kind of have that a little bit of that guilt complex that, yeah, I work from home. I'm a parent, but does that bring income in? Not necessarily, but I think it in the big scheme of things, Jay, it's probably more important that, and it really doesn't have to do with monetary versus just being a good parent.
Yeah, yeah. It was always me that had the issue. My wife never had an issue with me spending money. I should also say that I am very privileged to be in a position where I'm able to stay at home as a dad. I think.
Yeah, I like I said, Jay, I was in the same situation where my former spouse was able to, provide for us very well, and I would get stressed out the same way if I wanted to go buy a Snickers bar, and
Yeah,
even though I at the time I worked nights at another place, I still didn't feel that I was able to go out and get a Snickers bar, but that was something I had to get through, and um, eventually I did, and I still love Snickers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think I have again. I keep saying I'm at a good place, but I feel like I've gotten past this sadly because I've proven that I have my own career right
Mm.
now. When you shouldn't have to do that. Like it's all my own sickness that I had to build this freelance career, which is great and it's really taking off right now. But like in a way, it's sick also.
I don't know. I feel really blessed that you do have the opportunity to freelance, because without it, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored you brought me in to this
Oh,
conversation.
thanks, Jay. So, how can the listeners find more about Jay?
I'm on Twitter. I think it's at Jay Deitcher. I am there's my website jdeitcher.com. It's the best place.
Cool.
Instagram at Jay Deitcher if you want to see cute kiddo pics.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I deleted removed my Facebook and Instagram. I had to get away from social.
Understood.
Yeah.
Very understood.
Um, before I let you go, Jay, one last question. You ready for the last question?
Yeah.
So, last question. What are you looking forward to tomorrow? What are you looking forward to tomorrow?
So how many? um, I, I I think it's the one day at a time thing that I have, but I just really am happy to be here. I mean, I'm excited for projects I'm working on, but I really fear my kids getting older. I kind of love them where they are right now. I don't like it when my wife talks about them getting older. Um, it's they're at really good ages, but I think they've always been at really good ages. Kids are legit very cute. It's not a lie, and they are, and this is the age where they actually really like you. So I'm really loving that.
Oh yeah, it will, and I know it's the cliche of all cliches, Jay. It will fly by fast. Like I said, my son's gonna be turning 19. My two bonus daughters, one's gonna be turning 25 coming up. The other one this year will be turning 21. And you know, I'm very very blessed that all three kids treat each other like blood, like that my son is really their brother. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Jay, 1 in 3 right now. Before you know it, you're going to be walking your daughter down the aisle one day, um,
Yeah.
and your son's going to be graduating, and it's going to be like, holy crap, where did all this time go?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. It's tough. Yeah.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And I don't know if this is going to sound odd, but thank you so much for writing that piece. I mean, like, I mean, it stood out so much to finally, see another, dad go through something similar. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being a stay-at-home dad. Thank you for just being a part of the community, and for for saying thank you for my piece because we don't often hear that. We normally people ripped into me for that piece, but I got a lot of good feedback. Also, a lot of people reaching out to me. But a lot of times the trolls hit you up, so it's good to hear some good feedback. If you read the comment section, it's nasty.
Well, you can always turn that off, right?
Yeah, I don't have to read it, but I'm sick. Again, we've gone over this numerous times in the interview.